So as I sit down for Christmas Eve dinner, having conversations with all the aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters, cousins, everyone is sitting at the table, and one of the most common conversations was career change, especially with the 30-year-olds at the table. Quitting jobs, switching careers, not enjoying what they're doing, not fully satisfied. But what's interesting is this is actually not a new phenomenon. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average person will have 10 to 12 job changes in their lifetime. And most of those job changes happen between ages 28 to 40, which makes sense. You're trying to find the right lane. Maybe you're burnt out, or you're not happy with being middle management, stuck there the rest of your life. You want more purpose. And in fact, going a level deeper, LinkedIn reports that 60% of professionals in their early to mid-30s consider a job change for these reasons. But what's interesting now is more and more of these people are thinking less about becoming an employee at a company, more being an independent contractor / business owner. Hold that thought though. We'll get into that in just a moment, because what I think is interesting when I look back on my life, about early 30s is when I shifted out of my insurance career and into running my media company, my marketing company, and solving different problems. I wanted more purpose. Something had to be larger than life for me. And there's a few interesting shifts that need to take place when you move from an employee to an employer / contractor. It's not the same, and there's some skill sets that you need to know in order to be successful in making that shift, because there are some advantages that you have as a contractor. And we covered this more in depth in a video a couple days later, but I thought it was interesting that we covered this in a video 2 days ago, 3 days ago, and now it's coming up again at the dinner table in real life. And I felt very well informed because I'm recording these videos, I'm covering this stuff. I hope, by the way, and if you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm bringing you a fresh video about the workforce and AI 6 days a week. But I hope that, for the folks that have been watching these videos regularly, I know there's thousands of you, you actually go and you sit down at these tables and you feel more connected. You feel more well-informed by these videos. You feel like you're actually progressing and not treading water. Because it felt like with these 30-year-olds that they felt like they were treading water and they were concerned about their future. And again, what is interesting, again, is we look at historically people are changing jobs, but historically people are not becoming independent contractors. And that is what we're seeing now. According to Deloitte, 57 million workers have participated in the American gig economy. And there's some real pros and cons to this. But what I want to just briefly cover, and this is some of the brief advice that I gave some of the guys as someone who has been an independent contractor. I've been my own boss for, 5 years now. I'm managing about a dozen different people in different organizations, whether they're my contractors or employees of these companies that I'm working with. There are some things that you need to kind of understand. There's some differences between a contractor and an employee. And quite frankly, I'm probably gonna really flesh this out because I think this is such an important concept for guys like you and me who are trying to stay above water, because the reality is that companies are firing people. AI is a very common reason for these firings, and it is not going to slow down. As AI gets better, these companies are gonna be looking to shave off more. So here's some of the benefits of being an independent contractor, okay? So the first of which is you get a lot more flexibility. I work from home. If I need help out with the kids, I can help out with the kids. If I want to go on vacation, I work from home. And what is also important about understanding here is that as an independent contractor, it's less about clocking in and clocking out. It's less about the timesheet. It's more about what can you do for me? I've worked with dozens and dozens of different independent contractors over the past several years. And I have never paid for hourly wages. I've never paid hourly. It's always results-based. This is what I need you to do. This is the base, this is what I pay for the result. And I think that is probably the best way to handle it from a hiring standpoint, but also from a work standpoint. If I'm going to go to work for someone, I'm gonna say, hey, this is approximately how many hours I'll give you each month, but really what I'm gonna be paid for is on the result. And I keep tabs on that. I keep tabs on my inputs and my outputs, my KPIs. How many leads do we generate this month? How many sales do we generate this month? How many conversions? You just got to think about it from your perspective. What are the KPIs that you're being judged on? Why are you being hired? You're not being hired to sit in a seat. You're being hired for a specific task. And the better you are at solving those problems, the more you'll get paid. This is the kind of the advice that I was giving these guys. Also, another big piece of advice is solve rich people problems because they pay better. Shout out to Alex Hormozy for that. So anyway, before I get way off task here, this is a really important concept to consider, because when you're being paid based on results, you can find times where you might not actually even do the work. There are a lot of different things, from video editing to media buying, that I don't actually do myself, but I hire other contractors to complete the work for me. So whereas I'm organizing the solution, I'm getting graded on the solution, I can find other people that are experts in all these different fields. And I think that that's an interesting dynamic. When you're an employee, you're not going out hiring people, you're not purchasing consulting, you're not purchasing software for your tech stack. But when you're a contractor, you have to think differently. You're kind of your own business owner. And to take that one step further, I covered this briefly in a video a couple days ago, is there's tax benefits, there's tax write-offs. You're gonna have the opportunity to write off things like office space, cell phone usage, and stuff like that. You can write that off as a business expense because that's the cost of doing business. Again, something that you're not gonna be doing as an employee, okay? Not gonna go into all the specifics of creating your own LLC and being your own boss and paying yourself, whether you're an S Corp or, we're not gonna get into that in this video, but all that stuff is very, very important. But here's the thing, guys, and this is what I really wanted to kind of hit home with these young men who have been employees and now they're thinking about going out on their own and becoming contractors and solving different problems. Where there are benefits, there are also some real benefits to the employers, okay? And if you don't understand these benefits to the employers, you're gonna have a harder time asking for the right compensation. So let's say, for example, you're used to charging $40 an hour as an employee. Now you probably need to be charging $60 to $70 an hour. Why? Because you're not getting those benefits. You're not factoring those benefits into your salary, okay? You're not factoring taxes into your salary. So again, just to, take this a little bit further, an employer would much rather hire a contractor because they don't have to pay benefits like health insurance. They're not handling retirement funds. They're not giving, all these different sorts of benefits, Social Security. They're not paying all these benefits. They're just paying you as a contractor. You, as the business owner, absorb those costs. So you got to charge that up front. If you're not factoring that into your comp, you're not going to be making nearly as much. So you got to factor that in. And so what I would recommend, what I would encourage you to do, just to kind of close this out because, it's Christmas, I don't want to be away from the family too long, is leverage the tools that are out there, specifically an LLM like ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini or all of the above. And before you go out on your own and start handing out bids or accepting jobs, chat with that AI. Try to understand what is the going job market. So for example, I'll give you an example one of the guys had. One of the guys has been working in student services at university in San Francisco for the past several years. And he's like, well, I'm thinking about getting into coaching, essentially rich kids and rich parents on how to really get the most out of their college career and how to be successful, and how to take advantage of the opportunities that are there. And so for someone like that, if you're making that shift, you want to say, what are the comps? How much do I need to make in San Francisco? How much would the average coach in this field make? Who am I selling to? Am I selling to the kids? Am I selling to the university? Am I selling to the parents? Am I selling to the high school? Where do my services get sold to? And go and have this real conversation, real organic conversation, so you know how to position yourself in the market. Again, you have to make this shift. And this is, I think, a big thing that I want to hit on over the next year, is everyone is going to need to make this shift away from being an employee to being a business owner. I mean, we already looked at this data point from Deloitte. 57 million workers have participated in the American gig economy. That's like 25% of workers have participated in the gig economy, and that's not going to slow down, guys. There's a lot of advantages to doing this. There's pros, there's cons, and I think we really need to lean into this because there's going to be a lot of layoffs coming up. And what's happening right now, and again, I covered this in a video a couple days ago, I'll post a link to the video here, is companies are firing millions of people, well, I should say hundreds of thousands of people, and then they're realizing, oops, we need to rehire them back. But when people are getting hired back, they're being hired back as contractors. So you have to tackle being a contractor as a business owner as opposed to being an employee. Guys, I appreciate you being here. Have a Merry Christmas holiday, and I will see you in the next video, boys. See ya.